Welcome to another episode of the Body and Mind Show. I am your host, The Mind, and with me is my co-host, The Body. We have an NHL preview. So let's look at the upcoming NHL season with the Atlantic, or otherwise known as the Original Six Division.
Seems to be the most original six teams there.
As we have no less than 4 Original Six teams in the Atlantic Division. So it's Boston, Detroit, Montreal, and Toronto. All 4 of those teams in the Atlantic.
What the puck?
So in the Atlantic, your Bruins are there.
Yeah, they're there.
What do you think? A lot of people are actually thinking Boston actually has a legitimate shot at being a Stanley Cup contender this year.
I see improvement this year. I see playoffs, maybe a round or two. I don't know about legitimate cup contender yet.
Well, Boston with still the ageless Zdeno Chara still there leading the defense, although they got Torrey Krug and rookie Charlie McAvoy there to provide the offense from defense now.
I'm excited to see what McAvoy could do this year.
A lot of people have him pegged as potential Calder candidate Rookie of the Year.
Love to see it.
19 years old, but amazing. He's already at that age already being pegged as the next great offensive defenseman.
Mm-hmm.
Can he reach Ray Bourque-like levels? Let's see about that.
Yeah, we'll see about that. We'll give it time. And it'll be really good for him to step up because really, how much does Chara have left? I mean, does he have one more strong season left? That's going to be huge. Always love Patrice Bergeron.
Yep.
Can never go wrong with him.
Just a great all-around player.
Pasternak, love him. I don't know if Marchand will have the year he did last year, but he's just a great player, and he's just really. If he was on another team, I'd hate his guts. But I love him in Boston.
He is one of those players exactly that you despise him with every fiber of your being, and you end up inventing new words to describe him.
And another big thing will be, should they get in the playoffs, and I believe they will. It will also be a case of how does Tuukka Rask play in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty optimistic. I think it's going to be a good year. I think they get in the playoffs, maybe win a round. Maybe if they go a bit further than I expect, conference finals. I don't know if I really expect that. I'm expecting about second round. I'd be happy with that. But I don't know about cup contender, but I think they're treading upward for the next couple of years.
Also in this division, we have also Tampa Bay, which is another team that a lot of people are picking as Stanley Cup contenders. With good reason. Steve Stamkos is back
for now
from major injury. That's true. That's a big question mark there. Can Stamkos stay healthy enough? And they're also going with a young goalie this year as well, as Ben Bishop has been traded away. And they're letting the young guy take over the pipes. So that is another question of just how well can the young goalie handle basically the pressure of a playoff series.
That will be interesting to see. Tampa's
Vasilevsky being the goalie we're talking about here.
Yeah, Tampa, I mean, they have so much speed. They're an exciting team. Yeah, a lot of it's going to hinge on Stamkos' health. And if he stays healthy, they are a legitimate contender. The injuries, I mean, he's had a couple of rough ones, but I mean, if he could actually stay healthy this year and avoid that, I mean, they just throw a lot of weapons at you in waves.
Well, yeah, because you got on offense, I mean, you got Nikita Kucherov, who's basically a point-of-game player, one of the top 10 scorers in the NHL there.
You have Tyler Johnson coming at you, Stamkos. It's just, yeah.
Yep.
Victor Hedman on the blue line.
Oh, Hedman, there's a 60-point puck-moving defenseman there. I mean, on paper, they look to have pretty much everything you need. So the question definitely will be both the health of Stamkos and the performance of Vasilevsky, both regular season, but especially in the playoffs.
And I think Chris Kunitz will be a good veteran pickup. He doesn't His offense isn't what it used to be. But I don't know. If he's got anything left, I think he could be.
That is true.
Be a good role player.
I think that's a great pickup, actually, because you have a legitimate, multiple-time Stanley Cup champion and Olympian. Let's not forget that Chris Kunitz played for Canada in the last Olympics. So we have a veteran of Stanley Cup victories, Canada Cup gold medalist. That is a tremendous pickup for a team that's looking to take that next step and finally hoist.
And he's always been a really good character player.
Exactly. Other teams that folks are excited in this division are Montreal and Toronto. Toronto, obviously, they had a good season last year. I'm unsure about them because they are still a very young team. And although they have a lot of great young guys like Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews and William Nylander, and they brought in Patrick Marleau this year.
I think that's a good pickup for them.
So it's a good pickup, but I don't know if this is going to be kind of like a sophomore jinx, but for an entire team.
There is a possibility of that.
So I know, I realize that there's a lot of excitement and legitimate. I think they'll be a fun team to watch. Playoffs, I don't know. I think this will be a struggle for them to make the playoffs.
Well, one of their problems last year was defensively, and I don't know if they've really shored that up yet.
And that hasn't been improved. It's more or less the same defense.
Yeah.
One team that does not suffer on defense is Montreal. Although their fans have been not as excited about them. That is a team that obviously Bergevin, their GM, he has been changing up that team, the look of the team to basically mold the vision that he has, and he has now reconstructed that defense completely, where now you have people like Shea Weber, Carl Alzner. Carl Alzner, people like that, they will be thumping bodies everywhere.
Which they could use. Anyone could always use that.
So he's basically built a defense that is not as mobile as it used to be, but is a defense that will crush people and make you pay for every second that you spend in their zone. And Shea Weber, still a great puck-moving defenseman on top of it all.
I think the interesting thing is I remember hearing before camp started that they were talking. I know Jonathan Drouin was scheduled to play center, and they were talking about moving Alex Galchenyuk over to the wing. And they weren't sure what to do with the number 2 center. Now, I don't know what developments they've had during training camp and the exhibition season. I would think you want to go with Drouin and Galchenyuk as your top 2 centers. I would move Galchenyuk back to center. I think that would take care of your issues with your top 2 centers. I think they have their top 2 centers there. They need to play them both at center.
Yep. I agree, because that has been the issue not just for Montreal, but really for every single NHL team. Because every GM, they keep saying that center is always the position of most need, possibly next to a good defenseman. But center is a position of need, and you've seen GMs trading away big time players to get that number 1 center. As we saw Nashville do a couple of seasons ago, trading away highly touted defensive prospect Seth Jones to Columbus for Ryan Johansson to be his number 1 center in Nashville. Montreal, Drouin and Galchenyuk, if they could get those 2 down on center, and if Galchenyuk, and if they both play as expected, then suddenly, if Montreal can get some offense going, as we've said with NFL teams, this is one of those teams that they don't need a lot of offense, they just need some, because their defense will back them up. And let's not forget, they got a guy called Price in that.
Yeah, Carey Price can't score goals unless he nets an empty netter.
But basically 1 goal, maybe 2, that's all they need.
I know they had Daniel between their on a higher line last year, and he played okay. But I just look at this team, and I think if you had Duran, Galchenyuk, Daigneault, and Plekanec up the middle, man, that's an amazing 4 guys to have up the middle if you're going to roll 4 lines.
And it'd be a good combination. You'd have a lot of speed up front and a lot of bruising from the back.
Yeah. I mean, because especially this day and age, I know you have teams that have 3 good lines and some not as good a 4. If some teams try to roll 4 lines, I think that would give them 4 really good lines.
Agree. That is the Atlantic Division. Next, we go to the most ridiculously named division, the Metropolitan Division.
Was it a bunch of New York teams?
I hate this name so much, the Metropolitan. Like, I don't like the other division names. They're all brutal names. The Central. Oh, why? Because the teams are in the center of the country. Oh, yay. Creative.
The Atlantic. Ooh.
Maybe because they're by the Atlantic Ocean?
The Pacific, because they're by the Pacific Ocean.
There's a pattern here.
There is.
It's as if they're named for geography. How creative.
Wow.
Not. That's a suck for another day.
At least in the Northeast United States is the only metropolitan area in North America. Yeah, you're by the ocean, you're by the other ocean, you're central. Hey, the Metropolitan Division.
Why not? Let's go with the Met.
You're big time. I don't know about some of the teams in this division being big time.
On this division, we got Carolina, Columbus, Jersey, the double New Yorks, Philly, Pittsburgh, and Washington, the team that cannot win a playoff game.
By the way, and I just remembered this now, correct me if I'm wrong, but after this year, aren't the Islanders like pretty much uninvited to the Barclays Center?
Pretty much.
I don't think I've ever heard of an arena not wanting a team before. This is a first for me.
This is similar to what the Los Angeles Chargers are going through.
Well, that's just the city doesn't want them. Here it's specifically the building.
I mean, we have a case of just like the Chargers made this bizarre, half-witted, I don't know, middle of the night decision to suddenly leave San Diego and go to LA. So did the Islanders make the decision from leaving Nassau Coliseum. That was the name of their previous area, right? Nassau, to go into the Barclays Center, which from day one made no sense because the Barclays Center was created to be a basketball arena. Mm-hmm. And anyone who's ever been in a basketball arena sees that they are vastly different than a hockey arena.
Though if you've seen the New Jersey Nets, you could argue, or the New York Nets, or the Brooklyn Nets, excuse me, you could argue they still need a basketball team.
That is true. And we'll discuss that on an upcoming NBA preview.
Yes.
But yeah, you had basically an arena that I think the configuration for hockey for the Islanders only seats, I don't even know if it gets to 15,000. I think it might be like 14 and change. I think they are officially the smallest arena in the NHL. I don't even think they get to 15,000 capacity.
Do they sell out at all?
That's another question.
Oh, just like the Chargers.
Just like the Chargers. So yeah, now we have them playing in an arena that doesn't make sense for hockey. The sightlines are not meant for hockey. And now you're saying the arena, they don't want them.
Interestingly, remember we talked about the Calgary Flame Arena thing and the whole thing with Seattle at the same time? Well, I mean, if there's so many takers for NHL teams, why don't you find an arena for the Islanders and show me there's takers?
Exactly right. So, arena debate aside...
Yeah, sorry, I got off topic there. It's just comical to me.
It is comical, and we love comedy here.
We do. We're all about the yucks.
The thing is, the New York Islanders, they are a coin flip team, because they do have a legitimate star there in John Tavares, who is definitely one of the top 10 players in the NHL. So they have their leading scorer there, leading offensive playmaker. And they made a trade this year to get Jordan Eberle from Edmonton to basically be his line mate, and that the hope will generate crazy scoring.
Yeah, good luck.
But it's a team that despite the money they spent, like signing free agent Andrew Ladd last season, who underwhelmed. This is a team that looks like no matter what they've tried, they still do not have enough to compete with some of the other teams in their division.
No. Is Tavares a free agent in a year or two?
He is. So
he might be leaving the Islanders faster than the Islanders are leaving the Barclays.
So with that, we then go to Washington. Will their fall continue?
Interesting. Does the fall continue, or do they actually benefit from the fact that everyone's given up on them and there's no more pressure?
So at long last, finally the season where the expectations are pretty much gone from the Capitals, this could finally be the year without that monkey on their back that they perform.
Yeah, they've lost some pieces, but I mean, they still have a lot of really good players.
Well, definitely the talent is there to win. You got Brayton Holtby in net, which is a phenomenal goalie. John Carlson, offensive defenseman. Again, 40, 50-point defenseman. Let's not forget, they got this Alex Ovechkin guy. He's a good kid. He tries hard.
Yeah, I've heard of him. He's pretty good. I think he'll make a mark on this world someday.
Even though he doesn't have all of his teeth. Hey, he's a hockey player. He's got the nice toothy grin.
That's a sign he wants to play hard.
And he does. And then let's not forget, they've also got Kuznetsov, Burakovsky. They have scorers. Mm-hmm. They have plenty of weapons on offense.
TJ Oshie, great player, great grinder with hands. So this is a team that, yeah, I'm with you. I think they could actually surprise this year. Yeah, every year I count them out because of the same thing. They lose to Pittsburgh in the second round.
Yep.
Because every year, people, this is our year. And I look at people like they're crazy. Yep. I got to see different. But, yeah, this year, they're predicted in a magazine I have to finish 5th in the Metropolitan Division. I wouldn't call them favorites to win the Cup, but I like their chances better this year without expectations than I have the years when people have expected something out of them.
Full agreement. Two teams that I have this year from this division that I think are going to make some significant upswings are the Columbus Blue Jackets and Carolina Hurricanes.
Man, I really like what Columbus did last year.
Columbus last year, this is a team that's been collecting, stockpiling draft picks and building through the draft and making even some pretty shrewd trades, such as getting Seth Jones from Nashville, as we mentioned before. And this is a team that is a young team, but looks to have all the parts that they need. They got a great goalie, the Vezina winner in Sergei Bobrovsky. Seth Jones leading the defense. And let's not forget that it's not just Seth Jones on his own. They're on defense as well, as they got sophomore Werenski back there.
He's fantastic.
But double-headed attack coming from defense.
Up front, I really like Nick Foligno as a player and a leader.
Yeah, Nick Foligno, basically second-generation star in the NHL.
And Panarin from Chicago. That was a good deal for them. I think that was a good deal for both teams.
That is a good deal for both teams because, yeah, it provides them with more scoring, and they've got new number one center, Wenberg, just incredible talent. So this looks like a team with a lot of just good, young, speedy guys backed by a very good goalie that I think is going to make a significant rise in the Met.
And the question, do you think he really is a kinder, gentler Torts, or?
No.
Because, yeah,
Torts is Torts.
But you just hope that act doesn't thin out too soon. Hopefully he can continue it for another year.
Well,
because if that were sin, that could become a problem.
It could. I think probably some of the issues, I think as we might be seeing, maybe he is a little kinder and gentler.
He's still going to be Torts, but I'm wondering if he's dialed it back maybe a bit or
Maybe
not.
He's dialed it back. It's possible that he has. I just wonder the last coaching gig he has in Vancouver, if he just got so frustrated at how useless those players were, that brought out extra vinegar out of him.
It may have. And I mean, I remember at one time I used to hear of a kinder, gentler Ken Hitchcock, and that was a lie. Kinder, gentler Ken Hitchcock.
It's like a kinder, gentler Krampus.
Well put.
The anti-Santa Claus.
Yes.
Look him up. You'll know what I mean. And yeah, Carolina, that's another team. Again, similar ideas, Columbus. Great group of young players that they've been building for years. Defense is impressive. With Justin Falk, they're leading the attack. Great puck-moving defenseman there. Hanifin, another great defender they have there. So they've got some good puck-moving defensemen on that team. And on the forwards, again, they got Jeff Skinner still there, and looks like he's recovered from his concussion issues from a few years back. Played a full season last year. And then Sebastian Aho is a great young 20-year-old prospect they got for the forward lines. So this looks to be a team that, again, has been building through a draft for years, and I think they are kind of ready for a breakout.
And the return of Justin Williams, a veteran, will help with that too.
Yeah.
Mr. Game 7.
Exactly. So yeah, so those two teams that we like, Carolina, Columbus, look for them to make a move up in the Metropolitan. And, of course, there's always that Pittsburgh team. I think they won some shiny gold something.
They're not bad.
Silver. Yeah, they got some silverware.
Yeah, they're reasonable.
Yeah, they're good kids. They try hard.
I think those Crosby and Malkin kids, they have potential.
Oh, with them. Yeah, I've heard of them. Yeah, Crosby, Malkin, yeah, Kessel, yeah.
Kind of interesting how Kessel wasn't good enough to play in Toronto.
Yeah, he's good enough to hoist the Stanley Cup?
Yeah. I thought the deal was a good idea from Toronto at the time. I'm not knocking that. I'm knocking the Toronto media talking when they're trashing him, though.
Yeah. Toronto media likes to think they're GMs.
Yeah. Well, they'd all be GMs that are fired.
Next division that we're covering is the Central. Central, we have... Basically, we have Chicago, Colorado, Dallas, Minnesota, Nashville, St. Louis, and Winnipeg. We see a Colorado low in this division.
Why do we ever?
Do you think that this team will actually... Can they actually be worse than last year, I suppose? Is that even possible?
I don't know if worse than last year is possible, but I have a tough time seeing progress. It's just a mess.
Especially with the Matt Duchene trade situation. This is a guy that they've basically been talking of trading for 2 seasons now, and nothing has happened yet. And it's gotten to the point where now the reporters are constantly asking, from every city, are constantly asking GM Joe Sakic, are you trading Duchene? Are you trading Duchene? And Duchene himself has now basically gotten tired of all this trade talk, and he pretty much wants out.
How do you not find... I know you want to get market value, but how do you not find a reasonable deal in 2 years?
Exactly. I think this is obviously a case of Joe Sakic looking for somebody to overpay for Duchene.
Because there's obviously going to be no shortage of prospective takers for this guy.
Practically every team has made an offer for him. And you can't tell me that there hasn't been a few offers that would be juicy enough to do this deal.
Yeah, he's just hesitant to jump the gun.
It definitely looks like, as you mentioned about Cubs pitching there, having the yips. I think Joe Sakic has the yips.
That may be a good observation.
Pulling the trigger on a trade here.
We're going to offer you this and that and that and this in draft picks. I'll get back to you later. Maybe, possibly.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. At some point, Joe, you just gotta do it. Swing the trade, make the trade, because this isn't helping Colorado. A team in which practically every player last year finished at -30 or lower.
That's just hilarious hearing that, unless you live in Denver.
Yeah, pity the Denver fans. Hopefully the Nuggets gave you some joy last year at least. Other teams here, Ken Hitchcock, as you had referenced earlier, back in Dallas.
That'll be interesting. Will he help? They've been a freewheeling team that can't defend. Will he help give a little discipline, or will he be too harsh and will this just fall apart quick?
Very true. This is a team that Dallas is obviously focused on pure offense with all of the moves they made this offseason, and including some of the players they already had, like Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn, Klingberg on defense, who scores 50-plus points a year. So offense is not an issue here. So, yeah, if Ken Hitchcock could come in and bring some actual defensive structure, then Dallas suddenly becomes a power to be reckoned with.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it shakes out. It's kind of interesting last year because you remember last year, Hitchcock, it was supposed to be his final year in St. Louis and he was going to retire.
Right, retire. Fishing.
Yes. Fishing for a new team to coach, apparently, because he's not retired. Looks more like St. Louis was pushing him out the door. Well, especially because they brought in Mike Yeo, to be the assistant coach and future head coach. And that lasted, half the season before the promotion for Yeo and the push out the door for Hitchcock. And now Hitchcock, who was supposed to be retiring, is with another team.
Yeah, surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Yes.
It doesn't sound like retirement should have been in air quotes. You're retiring because we don't want you.
It sounds like when a wrestler retires. No, he's not retiring. He's just leaving this territory so he can go to
another territory. Man, I used to love those 1980s loser leaves town and loser must retire matches.
That's what happened. Ken Hitchcock lost a loser leave town match and he's banned from St. Louis. So Dallas... that one's a question mark.
I think that's either going to turn out extremely good or extremely bad. I don't see much in between there.
And the other question is that this year they try to address their goaltending, which has been an issue for the last few seasons, by bringing in Ben Bishop, formerly of Tampa Bay. So there's a question there. Bishop was a rock-solid goalie, but last year in Tampa Bay was a bit of an uneven season. So it becomes a question as well. Does the Ben Bishop we've seen all these years come back and provide that stone wall? Mm-hmm. If he does, if Ben Bishop is back to his old self, by accident, Dallas will be better.
This is true. Yeah, they will be an interesting team.
Speaking of interesting teams, Nashville. They went to the Stanley Cup Finals last year. Can they do it again this year?
I don't see why they can't. I don't know if I necessarily call them my favorite, but I don't see why they can't. They were really strong in the playoffs last year until they faced Pittsburgh. They walked through Chicago early on.
They did. They swept them.
Yeah.
A switch that caught absolutely everyone off guard. I actually expected, I picked Nashville to beat Chicago last season just because just their defense that they had going in was phenomenal, like Roman Josi, PK Subban, Ryan Ellis. I mean, those are three defenders that would be the top guy for any other team, for almost any other team in the league.
I believe Josi got the C.
He did. Mm-hmm. And so on the backing of tremendous defense, a great goalie in Pekka Rinne as well, and an improving offense with Forsberg there, and Ryan Johansson, Victor Arvidsson. This is a team that showed that they're a legitimate power, and they haven't gotten any weaker this year. So I would Ryan Ellis, they'll miss him. He's out for at least half the season.
Nick Bonino will be an underrated pickup. He'll give him a little sandpaper. I think he kind of replaces Mike Fisher a bit.
Exactly.
Because Fisher's a bigger loss, I think, than people realize, just on character.
That is true. Because, yeah, you do need, we've talked about it, you do need those sandpaper players, those guys that are willing to go into the corners and just play dirty and go where others fear to tread.
Mm-hmm. That's a huge part of it. Especially in the playoffs. As much as the game has gotten faster the last few years, you still need that.
Well, you need ugly in the playoffs because the NHL, as we all know, does not have a rule book in the playoffs.
Every night is no disqualification. To the finish. Literally, no disqualification to the finish. There's like, the rule book goes out and you can go 3 or 4 overtimes. They should actually come up with the old school wrestling. We've made a lot of wrestling references tonight.
Have we now? It's like we're fans of the sport.
Yes, but yeah, you come out, literally introduce the beginning. This will be one fall, no disqualification to a finish. Because you don't know how late it's going. Which is part of the joy.
It's true. That is the one peculiarity about the NHL that I think separates it from all other major sports that I can think of, is that it is the only league that absolutely throws its rule book out the window when the playoffs come along. All the other sports, whether it's Major League Baseball, NFL, CFL, soccer, World Cup, you name it, they actually still apply the rules and actually call fouls, penalties, you name it, in the playoffs according to their rule book, except for the NHL.
Yeah, the NBA just fixes games. I don't know if they'd say fix them, but you get some questionable officiating in the NBA, but it's a whole different beast of its own in the playoffs.
But they're still applying their own rule book?
There's still some rule book. This is a point, yeah.
Also in this division, a lot of people have been talking about also the Winnipeg Jets, that this is also a team that's been building through the draft for 6 seasons now since the team moved back to Winnipeg from Atlanta. Will this finally be the year that the Jets finally take that next step from building through the draft to actually being a playoff contender? Or a contender to make the playoffs, not to actually win the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of pessimistic. I think I see somewhere the same old. Like to be proven wrong. I don't know. I just have this scary feeling right now. If I went on the Winnipeg Jets website, they'd be having a fantasy draft just to have a draft.
Management does seem to be obsessed with picking up draft players.
Yeah. My big thing is I think they've drafted really well. I question how well they're developing their draft picks. I mean, their AHL teams haven't had amazing records, and I just wonder how they're developing in the minors. I mean, when you look at great teams over the years, some of the great teams way back in the 80s, Montreal was notorious for bringing players through their minor league system. In the 90s, the New Jersey Devils, when they had their run, was notorious. Detroit was notorious for bringing players through their system and being patient with them. And yeah, you want them up at a relatively young age, but you developed them. They didn't bring the players up and then develop them on their main roster. The Jets seem to send players through the A, but the teams don't have great records in the A. And then they seem to bring them up to develop them in the NHL, and they get lost in the mix. I like their drafting. I don't like the way that they develop.
Well, that is definitely an interesting point, because for as much praise as they've gotten for having a deep farm system, as many consider, it is true that their farm team, the Manitoba Moose, have not had good records. They haven't even had winning records. So you definitely got to question that, how, despite all of this praise and the apparent on paper good up-and-coming players that they do have, the fact that they've been playing on a losing team, and the fact that they haven't been able to carry their farm team to winning records is a concern.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree.
The question for them as since day one, the team has been there is goaltending. This is the first year that Andrei Pavlik is no longer with the team. He's now a backup on the Rangers, and now they signed free agent Steve Mason to challenge Connor Hellebuck for being the starter. So they're hoping that Mason can finally inject some stability at goaltending. So there's a question mark there. Will Mason be able to provide that consistent goaltending that they've been needing?
I also have a question. How far away is Mike Comrie from the NHL?
It sounds like he's kind of taken a bit of a step back. So yeah, the last season in the minors didn't go as well as expected. It seems like his progression is kind of stalled at the moment. So yeah, Mike Comrie looks like he might need more seasoning in the AHL, and yeah, right now it's unknown. Maybe this was just a blip.
Hopefully.
But yeah, at the moment there's no other goaltending coming up from the minors to challenge the top two guys. So yeah, so there's the question. A lot of great young players on the Jets. Mark Scheifele, Ehlers, of course, Rookie of the Year candidate Patrick Laine. So a lot of offense. Blake Wheeler. So offense is not a problem. No. Seventh highest scoring team in the NHL last year. But defense is the problem. This has been a bottom 5 team in the NHL for 6 years now. And so this team's fortunes will definitely rise on the performance of the defense to actually defend.
I think another issue is, while there's great offensive players, how many role players do they really have?
That's another good point, because the bottom 6, there are not really a lot of role players down there.
No, there's players with promising careers, but they're not particularly role players.
No, they're mostly offensive-minded players down there. Not a lot of muckers and grinders and ugly players down there. And no pests that we can see of, except for Lemieux, but he didn't make the final roster. He's going to be at least starting the season in the farm system.
How's he been playing in the farm? Has he been playing well or disappointing? Or
been playing well, been improving, but not yet to the point where they feel confident in that he's not yet ready for the NHL.
Well, hopefully maybe in a year or so he will be ready.
The Jets can only hope.
They can.
And that's the Central. And lastly, we have the Pacific Division.
Well, specifically the Pacific.
And in this division, we got Anaheim, Arizona, Calgary, Edmonton, Los Angeles, San Jose, Vancouver, and the brand new shiny Vegas Golden Knights.
Woo!
Could the Knights have picked a worse division to start in? This is not a division for the faint of heart.
No.
We have recent Stanley Cup finalist San Jose, just 2 years removed from the finals. 2-time champ LA Kings there. Stanley Cup, one of the Stanley Cup favorites, Edmonton Oilers in there. Calgary Flames, also a vastly improved team and a young team. Another team was expected to make a big jump.
And apparently Jaromir Jagr is supposed to be going there.
Jaromir Jagr has signed with the Flames. So the traveling Jagrs, they don't have to travel so far anymore, because Jaromir will be playing in their hometown of Calgary.
Awesome.
And Arizona, this is a team that has been worthless pretty much ever since they left Winnipeg to go to Phoenix, but I think they are finally ready to take the next step from actually being a legitimate, respectable team. I think Arizona is actually a team on the rise. And finally, in this division, we have Anaheim, who have been a superpower now for at least a decade.
Mm-hmm.
So Vegas is going to have its hands full being in the Pacific Division.
Oh, good luck to them.
And speaking of the Golden Knights, there'll be the question, how will they do? What does your gut tell you?
Last place.
With a vengeance?
Heart, mind, and gut are united.
Well, I got to say that although some people, many have been mentioning you're talking about sandpaper, they've got a team of grit and sandpaper. But when I look at this lineup, I have to be honest, there are precious few names that I even recognize on this lineup. Cody Eakin, David Perron are the two forwards that stick out the most and on this team. Also Neil, who they acquired on the expansion draft from Nashville, former top scorer. But Perron, one of the issues with him, again, concussion. He lost an entire season a couple of seasons back, so it's a question of whether or not he's past that. On defense, not much here. You have Derek England, who's basically there just to punch people through a wall. Jason Garrison, so he's obviously there to try to provide some kind of offense, but
more of a stay-at-home guy these days. Doesn't really get a shot off much.
True. So yeah, there's like really nothing on defense that really screams out. Their biggest star, obviously, would be their starting goalie, Marc-Andre Fleury, 3-time Stanley Cup champion. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I think Marc-Andre is going to be a busy man this year.
Yes, he is.
So those are the Golden Knights. So good luck to them. Yeah, and as we mentioned, on the rise, Arizona, Edmonton, and Calgary. A lot of people think that the Oilers have a shot at challenging for the Stanley Cup.
I think they'll have a good playoff run. I don't know if they're ready to win a cup yet. And plus, same issue as with Toronto. There's the question of the dreaded sophomore jinx there. I think they'll overcome that to some degree. I have this feeling they'll be about the same as last year, maybe a bit better. Yeah, they're going to be a tough team every night. I mean, they're just loaded with young talent. Obviously, McDavid, Draisaitl, Lucic gives them elbow grease and scoring. Still some scoring contribution there. Yeah,
you found a hotshot young rookie too that is poised to make a significant difference on this team. An unexpected addition to the roster.
Yes, I had his name written down. Yeah, he was supposed to Yamamoto. Yeah, he wasn't even penciled in to make the lineup this year. He's their first round pick, I believe, 22nd overall. He's 5'8", I think 158 or something obscene like that.
Yep.
He went to camp and he impressed so much that he actually won a job. He had a really sharp preseason, 7 points in 6 games. Really impressed the Oilers enough that he's up with the big team to start the year.
And that's an amazing accomplishment for somebody that literally management, coaches, they had absolutely no intention of having him be on the roster. He wasn't even like a bubble player that, let's see how he does. It was literally, no, he is going to be in the minors. We brought him to training camp just because we brought him to training camp.
Filling a body to fill camp.
Just a body to fill camp and to just, give him the same shot as everybody else, but with absolutely zero expectation of him making the roster.
Yeah, hopes he'd be ready in a year or two or something.
Exactly.
And here he is. And I think he might be playing on one of the top lines. I'm not absolutely sure about that.
So that is an amazing accomplishment. This is definitely someone to look at, because when coaches and management have that low an expectation of a player and he manages basically to force them to keep him, this is definitely somebody to keep an eye on, somebody on the rise. Kyler Yamamoto.
And he'll fit well in Edmonton with his speed. 5'8", 158. So he's there for speed.
Yep.
Great fit in Edmonton.
Yep. People will say, well, he's too small. Well, it doesn't matter. If you can't catch him, you can't hit him.
He was their first round pick, so they believe in him from that perspective. Someone who's under 160 pounds being picked in the first round, the Oilers definitely saw something in him. They just didn't think they would see it this year.
Mm-hmm. Other teams here, as we mentioned, Calgary. That's another team that that I think is on the rise. Again, lots of good young players. Johnny Gaudreau plays for the Flames. Matthew Tkachuk, who is their 2016 first-round pick. Basically, there's a player, you talk about like Lucic, a mix of elbow grease and scoring. There's a guy that, just like his father, Keith Tkachuk, Matthew plays the exact same game. He's a big power forward who crushes people and also crushes the net.
I'm also a big fan of Monahan. I really like him. I think he's a good two-way player. So lots of talent on this, lots of young talent on this team.
And lots of talent on the defense. A lot of scoring from the defense. Because we got Mark Giordano back there leading the defense. And also we got
picking up Mike Smith in goal helped too.
Well, that has been an issue they've had ever since Mika Kiprasov retired 4 seasons or so ago. Mm-hmm. They've had 4 different starting goalies in the 4 years since. So there's another team that's been looking for stability in net. If Mike Smith can provide that, and with the offense or defense can generate, then this is a team that's poised to also make a run. I think a potentially deep run in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
Well, they could. I didn't realize Sean Monahan was only 22. I knew he was young, but yeah, it's amazing. You got Monahan, Tkachuk, Michael Backlund's a pretty underrated player, I think. Yeah, it's amazing. Gaudreau, of course, he's fantastic.
He is as they say, the straw that stirs the drink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this team and now they have Yager.
Again, traveling Jagers, must-see TV.
They are. Yeah, I think Edmonton... You know, the one thing is I think Edmonton-Calgary games will be better to watch this year because they haven't been the same for me for a few years. I still don't know if you'll still have the Battle of Alberta. Seems like you just don't see hatred as much as you used to.
Well, what you have now with these two teams will be the speed of Alberta.
Yes.
Because both teams have speed to burn.
Very true.
So when you watch their games, don't sneeze because you might miss 3 goals. And of course, in this division, always ever-present Anaheim Ducks. That's a team that every year is a Stanley Cup challenger. This year is no different. Again, this team is still all of the core players. Corey Perry is back to provide toughness and scoring. Getzlaf is there, the number 1 center, playmaker, and also just a large body, provide tremendous scoring. Rickard Rakell, young forward that they're very excited about. And on the blue line, they've got some tremendous players back there, some puck-moving defensemen, and a great goalie in Gibson. So this Anaheim Ducks looks like a team that, again, is poised to make a Stanley Cup run. And
they're in the division with some really good young teams as well, though.
That's true. So you figure that this is a case that maybe Anaheim's time is either shutting or shut. Will youth overcome the experience and the heaviness and the bigger team of Anaheim?
Well, that's the thing. I think they'll have a really good regular season. The question is, in the playoffs, does all that veteran grit and leadership help them? Or are the young teams like Calgary and Edmonton too much to deal with now?
That's a good point. Because the NHL has definitely become more of a speed league than the thumping, bruising, and grinding as they have been.
And this team is now a year older.
That's true. But, again, as we mentioned, in the playoffs, there are no rules.
No.
It's hardcore matches all the way to the final.
Anything goes.
Anything goes. Pull those, roll the quarters out of your trunks because they count in the NHL playoffs.
They're just another scientific move.
And with that is our NHL preview for the 2017 NHL season. Buddy, thanks again for another great show.
It's been fun again.
And thanks again for listening to the Body and Mind Sports Show.